This is my setup at the moment, and it's pretty nice, but I've gotten dozens of comments trying to inform me of something horribly wrong. Can you spot it? It's the wire. I'm using a wired mouse in the year 2024, and all these commenters trying to tell me about how wonderful wireless mice are, the feeling of freedom they provide, and how wireless is just as fast as wired these days. Alright, I've tried a couple over the years. But then, what could have possibly gotten me to give up all those benefits? This is the OP1 8K by endgamegear, and it's basically all I use nowadays. For me, it's head and shoulders above everything else on the market, which isn't something that I thought could happen anymore with how competitive the peripheral space has become. And I don't think I'm alone with this opinion either. Countless pros and top aim trainer players have all swapped over to using this mouse as well. So what exactly makes it so good? I think it's all because of the wire. Hear me out. In my opinion, there are 4 main areas this mouse is unmatched in: shape, build quality, performance, and value. And I'll briefly mention shape now, just to say that I've already talked about this exact shape extensively in a different video on the OP1WE. I've linked it in the description if you're interested, but to briefly summarize, when making small mice, most companies tend to take an existing shape and either downscale 1:1 or only shrink it vertically, which led to a ton of shapes that were not long enough or too wide respectively. The OP1 took a different approach, which was to keep a lot of that length while making it thinner. This change in design philosophy, alongside numerous small but clever design decisions like the specifics of the back hump and side slopes, make it basically perfect for smaller hands like mine and still good for people with larger hands. It's been 8 months since I posted that video, and I've tried a few mice since then, with none of them coming close to this mouse's mix of comfort and aim potential. Since then, I have actually found one additional positive to the shape, which is the potential freedom for fingertip adjustments while still maintaining palm contact for stability. To explain what I mean a little bit, most people think of the 3 grip styles as 3 disparate things, but I've found that most people tend to alternate between 2 when playing. For palm to claw, this is easy, just curl your fingers a bit more, but for claw to fingertip, most of the time the hump of the mouse will either get in the way of any proper fingertip mobility or not maintain contact when making wider fingertip movements. Like looking at the Starlight 12, when making any fingertip adjustments, the hump will disconnect from the palm at the top, causing you to lose out on the stability benefits that palm contact would bring. A mouse like the Vansa Thrash, on the other hand, does allow some degree of fingertip mobility, but the wider design and higher profile limits your range of motion. The OP1's lower profile, thinner back, and steeper hump ensures that it's always making contact with either the underside of my ring finger knuckle or the base of my thumb. And I actually subconsciously changed my grip to better make use of that mobility, tilting the mouse slightly so that it fits in the middle of those 2 areas. This is honestly what cemented this mouse as the best for me. I just aim better on it. I can use my fingertips to stabilize general movements as well as actually micro-adjust. I can micro-adjust with my fingertips on this mouse without ever entirely losing palm contact, which is crazy. Usually for this level of fine control, you have to entirely give up the stability of palm contact. It's meant to be a trade-off, but this mouse somehow lets me work around it. To bring things back to that previous video I made on the OP1WE, I think that version of this mouse had 2 main downsides. The clicks were far too heavy generally, but especially for fingertip grip in my opinion, which would undo basically everything I just said about fingertip mobility, and that is compounded by the mouse's weight of 60 grams. The OP1 8K addresses both of those, being 50 grams and having far lighter switches by default, and the option to change those out for even lighter ones thanks to the mouse being fully hot swappable, which I chose to do for the 50 to 55 gram ones, and they feel amazing. This was actually what convinced me to get the OP1 8K initially. The OP1WE in terms of build quality was already almost perfect, with great stock skates, 0 side flex or top flex, and a structural stability that a lot of mice lack. So if endgamegear could maintain that feeling while making it lighter, while improving the clicks, it'd be perfect, and that idea was enough for me to want to give wired mice another try. The last time I'd used the wired mouse before the OP1 8K was probably 2 years ago, and I admit, I was a bit worried about how it'd feel. I do have a mouse bungee, but with how hyped wireless is, it's almost seen as a given now, it's gotta be a bit hard to go back to wired, right? Honestly, not at all. The cable is brilliant, not too flimsy that it gets stuck under the mouse, but flexible enough to move around effortlessly. I genuinely don't notice it in normal use, and I can count on one hand the amount of times that the wire has actually lost me a fight in a game. I play medium sense, anywhere from 30 to 50 cm per 360, and it's exceptionally rare for me to ever feel any resistance from that cable. But even then, how would the wire be a positive? The performance of the OP1 8K is unrivaled. It's the fastest mouse on the market, and regardless of your stance on just how important minimizing latency is, I think we can all agree that faster is better. That combined with the 8K Hz polling rate is amazing in games that can support it. This was the first mouse that I think feels significantly better in terms of latency versus a standard 3395 wireless mouse, and going back to the OP1WE, it now feels a bit delayed. Whether that's because of the polling rate or the weight or other latency reductions, I don't know, but all three are nice to have. And if you are looking for 8K on a wireless mouse, there are barely any options to choose from, I think at least partially because of the effect it would have on the battery life. I've used a few wireless mice at 4K Hz, and while they feel great, that smoother input doesn't matter if they only last a couple hours. And that isn't an exaggeration. My old HTX lasted under a day before needing a recharge, and the Beast X isn't much better. To get a battery big enough to support decent battery life at 8K Hz would make it near impossible to keep the weight low enough to be acceptable, and the OP1 8K just skips around all of that by not needing a battery in the first place. And something that I didn't think would be as nice as it is never having to charge my mouse. It's certainly something I got used to before, but never having to worry about my mouse dying on me mid-game is so nice, and honestly, I think it'd be weird to have to go back to charging my mouse again after spending so long without ever having to think about it. I think the strongest point in the OP1 8K's favour is where it falls into the market. To make a broad statement about today's options for wireless mice, you have two main potential paths. The first is a budget mouse at under $80 that sacrifices on features like the Filena S450. Mice like this aren't bad options by any means, but I personally would struggle to main them. For the Filena specifically, the build quality isn't up to par with more expensive options, the stock skates are hopelessly bad, and it felt like my copy had a fair bit of input latency. These trade-offs are expected for a $40 mouse, but these still are downsides. The second is a more premium mouse at $120 or higher that has all those features you're looking for, but isn't in an ideal price range for most people. Like the Viper V3 is an amazing mouse that's basically perfect on the quality front, but for the mouse alone, not including the dongle, it's $150. And I think laying things out like this makes how good of a deal the OP1 8K is extremely obvious. Matching the Viper V3 all around for quality while being only half its price is pretty incredible and would have been impossible for a mouse to pull off while being wireless. And even if you're a person who dislikes wires and you can't see yourself going back to using a mouse with one, it's hard to ignore the value on offer here. But I think looking at value alone kind of obscures how exceptional this mouse is in every other category. Putting price aside, the shape is the best I've used. It feels insanely sturdy while being 50 grams. It's very easy to mod. The stock skates are amazing. The clicks feel great. The grip tape is top tier. It's the best performing mouse on the market, and I could just keep going and going. I don't know how endgamegear has pulled this off, but they've made a product I just can't complain about. And I really wanted to. I always like having a little critique in my videos. It feels odd to be exclusively praising a product, and I really tried to sit there and think of something to call this mouse out on, but the only thing is the cable, and I don't care about it. If that wire doesn't bother you, you have a good bungee and the shape sounds like something you'd like, I don't think there's a better mouse out there right now. For people with larger hands, I've heard discussion of an XM2 8K, which is something to keep an eye out for, but for me personally, the only thing I can see myself swapping off this for is the OP1W 4K.